Folks, it is no secret I love history, specifically history about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And with the 2023 NFL draft approaching, I decided to take a look at Jason Light's draft history with the Buccaneers during his time as general manager from 2014, his first year as general manager, all the way to the current day. And I did this because I wanted to see if I could notice any patterns, if I could read any tea leaves, if I could gain any insight as to what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may be thinking or planning based on their historical drafting here as to what they may do in the upcoming NFL draft. So, hope you guys do enjoy this video. If you guys are new, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos as well. But let's go ahead and break this down with each position, starting with the quarterback position. Jason Light has only ever drafted two quarterbacks in his tenure as general manager. That was Jameis Winston all the way back with the #1 overall pick in the 2015 NFL draft, which had some varying levels of success and failures. It was overall a pretty neutral selection. And then you had Kyle Trask taken in the second round of the 2021 NFL draft. So again, only two quarterbacks selected in the Jason Light era. He has said recently that he would not be afraid to take a quarterback in this upcoming draft. It seems like the Buccaneers may be due to take another quarterback here somewhere in the later rounds, but it is notable that the only couple of times that Jason Light has ever taken a quarterback has been in either round 1 or in round 2. So kind of an interesting piece there, and definitely something worth noting. Jason Light does not take swings at the quarterback position very often as general manager. Kind of keep that in mind. Moving now on to the running back position, and this one is a little bit of a mixed bag. You have 6 total running backs selected during the Jason Light era so far up to this point. You have Rachaad White, who was taken in the 3rd round of the 2022 NFL draft. You have Keyshawn Vaughn, who was taken in the 3rd round of the 2020 draft. You have Raymond Calais, who was taken in the 7th round of that same draft. You have Ronald Jones, who was a 2nd round pick in 2018. And then you have Jeremy McNichols, a 5th round pick going all the way back to 2017. And then Charles Sims, a 3rd round pick in 2014. One interesting thing here to note for me personally is the idea of Jason Light really seeming to favor taking running backs in the 2nd to 3rd rounds. Out of the 6 running backs that he has selected during his time as general manager, you look at least a little over half of them, I guess I should say, were taken in either round 3 or in round 2. Specifically, half of them have been taken in round 3 with Rachaad White, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Charles Sims. Then you had Ronald Jones in round 2. So over half the running backs that have been taken in the Jason Light era have been in round 3 or in round 2 at least. Then you have Raymond Calais, Jeremy McNichols. They're kind of the outliers in this group, and this kind of leads me to believe that, hey, maybe the Bucs won't consider taking a guy like Bijan Robinson in round 1. They've never had a history of taking a running back in the 1st round before. Maybe that does mean that they are due to take a running back early in the draft. I don't know, but it is notable. It seems like rounds 2 or especially round 3 is a pretty sweet spot for Jason Light, but he also does dabble a little bit in the later rounds regarding the running back position as well. Moving on to the wide receiver position, and Jason Light loves taking wide receivers. He has taken 10 in his tenure as general manager, and it has been all over the board. He took Mike Evans in round 1 in his first year as general manager. He also took Robert Herron in round 6 in that same draft. Kenny Bell was a round 5 pick. Kalen Clay was a round 6 pick. Chris Godwin was round 3. Justin Watson, round 5. Scotty Miller, round 6. Tyler Johnson, round 5. And Jalen Darden, round 4. The only thing that I can really discern or gain from this is that Jason Light really seems to like taking wide receivers in that round 5 to 6 range, right? He has taken 1, 2, 3 wide receivers in round 6. He's taken 2 wide receivers in round 5 and 1 wide receiver in round 4 in Jalen Darden, 1 wide receiver in round 3 in Chris Godwin, and 1 wide receiver in round 1 in Mike Evans. So it seems like round 5 and round 6 is where Jason Light really does look to gain more depth at the wide receiver position. He's never taken a wide receiver in round 2. That's pretty interesting, and we will probably dive into why that is the case later here in this video, but it does seem like wide receiver is a position that Jason Light certainly does wait till the later rounds, at least in past drafts, to build up depth in that wide receiver room. You then take a look at the tight end position, and this one is pretty meh. You have Austin Seferian-Jenkins a round 2 pick, OJ Howard round 1, Cade Otton round 4, Keith round 6, and to be fair, that's a pretty meh bag of draft picks. ASJ, OJ Howard did not pan out in Tampa Bay. Cade Otton, Keith, they had pretty solid rookie years, but there is still a lot to be left to be seen with those two players. But Jason Light seemingly does not take a lot of tight ends in the NFL draft, and if he does, it's a pretty mixed bag of where those players are generally. Offensive tackle is the next position I want to take a look at here, and this one is pretty interesting. You have 3 offensive tackles, or I guess I should say players who played offensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was Kevin Pamphile in round 5, Donovan Smith in round 2, and Tristan Wirfs in round 1. That's interesting because it seems like Jason Light takes offensive tackles when it is pretty darn necessary. The Kevin Pamphile pick is a little bit of an outlier in my opinion, but whenever the Buccaneers needed a starting left tackle, they took Donovan Smith in round 2. When they needed a starting right tackle, they took Tristan Wirfs in round 1. So when that is a legitimate need on this Buccaneers team, Jason Light will certainly go out there and spend a round 1 pick or a round 2 pick to get one of those guys that he may be interested in. With this upcoming draft, the Buccaneers yet again need a starting left tackle or potentially a starting right tackle, depending on what they want to do with Tristan Wirfs, and it definitely seems like this pattern may continue. You may see a guy, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the Buccaneers took an offensive tackle in round 1 or in round 2, and Jason Light's overall had some pretty good success taking offensive tackles. Donovan Smith was a starter with the Buccaneers for many years. Tristan Wirfs, we all know how good that dude is. For offensive guard and center, the interior offensive line, again, a little bit more of a mixed bag here, not necessarily a pattern to discern, besides the fact that Jason Light has actually had some pretty good success taking interior guys in rounds 2 and 3. Kadeem Edwards was taken in round 5, Ali Marpet round 2, Caleb Benenoch round 5, Alex Kappa round 3, Robert Hainsey round 3, and Luke Gedeke round 2. So again, over half the guys, much like the running back position, over half the guys here have been taken in round 2 or in round 3 for Jason Light in his draft history to pretty good success. Ali Marpet was a phenomenal offensive lineman for the Bucs. Alex Kappa was a very quality starting offensive guard. Robert Hainsey has been a quality starting offensive lineman for the Buccaneers. The jury's still out on Luke Gedeke. He was obviously drafted in the second round of the most recent NFL draft, so we're going to have to wait and see if he continues to develop in a positive direction, but Jason Light has had some good early round successes in terms of drafting interior offensive linemen when he needs to bring in guys to potentially be starters. Doesn't seem like that'll be the way the Buccaneers go in this upcoming draft though, so maybe you see them explore the idea of taking a guy in round 5 like they did with Kadeem Edwards and Caleb Benenoch. Now moving on to the defensive side of things, and you get some pretty interesting things here. Firstly, we have got to talk about the defensive line. Let's take a look first at defensive tackle, because I feel like that is a pretty good starting point, and this specifically is a position that Jason Light is not invested in. Nose tackles and defensive tackles, he took Vita Vea in round 1. After that, you have Stevie T in round 7. You have Terry Beckner Jr. in round 7. Then you have Khalil Davis in round 6. Defensive tackles and nose tackles are not something that Jason Light typically invests a lot of draft picks in. Will that trend continue? Will the trend kind of get flipped on its head in this upcoming draft? Who knows? You would argue that they're pretty due to take a defensive tackle or a nose tackle, something along those lines, but it is certainly notable there. For defensive ends and edge defenders, I did include outside edge rushing linebackers in this list. The bag has been a little bit mixed, but certainly leans more towards early round selections. You have Noah Spence, a second round pick. Anthony Nelson, a round 4 pick. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was a first round pick. Logan Hall was the second round pick. And Andre Anthony was a 7th round pick. So whenever you do see Jason Light investing in an edge defender or a defensive lineman, it's at least in round 1 or round 2, at least in the majority there. Out of 5 guys, 3 out of the 5 were taken in round 1 or in round 2. You do have Anthony Nelson also taken in round 4, so I think it's safe to say that rounds 1 to 4 are typically a pretty good guesstimate range as to the Bucs investing in a D-end or an edge defender, and I really do believe we could see that trend continue in this draft as well. Given the Bucs' need for depth along the edge defending and defensive lines, you could see the Bucs continue that trend, maybe take somebody in round 3 for the first time. Jason Licht has never done that before, or continue that trend of getting maybe somebody in round 2 or possibly even round 1 or round 4 as well. Then you have interior linebackers and off-ball linebackers. Remember, there was some times when the Buccaneers were playing with a 4-3 defense there, and again, you've got some pretty interesting results, in my opinion. Quan Alexander was a 4th-round pick. Devontae Bond was a 6th-round pick. Kendall Beckwith was a 4th-rounder. Jack Sitchie was a 6th-rounder. Chappelle Russell was a 7th-rounder. Devin White was obviously a 1st-rounder. Grant Stewart was a 7th-rounder. And KJ Britt was a 5th-rounder. Now, I will say the reason that you see so many 4th, 5th, or I guess I shouldn't even say 5th-rounders. There was one 4th-rounder in Quan Alexander, one 5th-rounder in KJ Britt, and, well, I guess I should say another 4th-rounder in Kendall Beckwith, but you're seeing guys taken with 6th-round and 7th-round picks. Devontae Bond, 6th-rounder. Jack Sitchie, 6th-rounder. Chappelle Russell, Grant Stewart, both 7th-rounders. I think the reason you see guys getting taken in round 4, 5, 6, and 7, that's been 7 out of the 8 picks that Jason Licht has made at inside or off-ball linebacker. Only 1 pick was with Devin White in the first, in the first 3 rounds, let alone a round 1 guy. Everybody else was round 4 or lower is because Lavonte David's been there. And you don't necessarily need to invest a ton at that position when you have Lavonte David as your star linebacker. Now, of course, whenever you do move to a 3-4 defense, you had to bring in somebody else, another starting quality guy. You got that in Devin White. But it seems like the Bucs really do invest a lot in terms of depth guys. The numbers are there. Jason Licht certainly picks up a lot of inside linebackers, a lot of off-ball linebackers, guys who can cover a little bit, guys who can play inside. In this Buccaneers defense's case, it will be an inside linebacker if they do make that type of selection. And I think this is one where we could see that trend kind of buck a little bit, where we could see an inside linebacker taken in the first 3 rounds and not be a depth guy in round 4 or under. That is where I think you can see that change because of Devin White requesting a trade, because of Lavonte David getting older, because of both of those guys having expiring contracts. This may be one of the first times ever that we see Jason Licht pick up an inside linebacker in round 2 or in round 3 because of the necessity of it. It is a very interesting thing to note there, and it is certainly something worth paying attention to. Marte Mapu has been a guy who did have a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It seems like he's projected in the later rounds as well, so this trend could certainly continue. But it seems like, at least in terms of investment at inside linebacker or off-ball linebacker, it has been round 4 or under, besides the Devin White exception for Jason Licht and the Bucs. Now I want to talk about the most interesting trend that I have seen here, and that's regarding the secondary position. Man, oh man, Jason Licht loves to invest in the secondary position. First, let's start with safety. Jason Licht has gone crazy. He took Justin Evans in round 2, Jordan Whitehead in round 4, Mike Edwards in round 3, and Antoine Winfield Jr. in round 2. Jason Licht has spent 4 draft picks on safety. They were all pretty darn good draft picks. Justin Evans was an unfortunate circumstance of injuries, but he still put up some pretty phenomenal work during his time with the Buccaneers, and he's trying to make his return to the NFL. But Jordan Whitehead, quality starting safety. Mike Edwards, quality starting safety. Antoine Winfield Jr., one of the best young safeties in the league today. Justin Evans, when he was healthy, quality starting safety. But another interesting trend to note here is that all of these guys are at least round 4 picks. 2 in the 2nd round, 1 in the 3rd round, 1 in the 4th round. And that trend could certainly continue here in this draft. Jason Licht really does like taking safeties in rounds 2 to 4. And that seems like it could be another trend that may continue. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. There's been a lot of speculation that the Bucs could take a safety in rounds 2 to 3. Jason Licht certainly has liked to do that in the past, so let's pay attention to that moving forward. Cornerback is another very interesting trend here. You have Vernon Hargreaves as a round 1 guy, Ryan Smith round 4, MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, all second-round guys. Jamel Dean, a round 3 guy. Chris Wilcox, a round 7 guy. Then Zion McCollum, a round 5 guy. First thing I want to note here is that the only round, I guess I should say, Jason Light has not taken a cornerback was a round 6 pick. Besides that, he's been all over the board. But if you notice the pattern here, it's generally round 4 and up. Vernon Hargraves was the first round pick, the only time the Buccaneers have taken a cornerback in round 1. MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, those guys were all second round picks. That's 3 guys in the second round out of 8. So half of your guys at cornerback for Jason Light have been taken in round 1 or in round 2. It's pretty notable. Then you round it off with Jamel Dean and Ryan Smith in round 3 for Jamel Dean, in round 4 for Ryan Smith, Zion McCollum, and Chris Wilcox, bringing up round 5 and in round 7 respectively. But you look, 6 out of these 8 guys have been selected in round 4 or up. Jason Light likes to invest early round draft picks in the cornerback room, much like the safety position. And that's something we may, again, continue to see in this upcoming draft, because it's a pretty consistent thing, right? There's a consistent pattern there. You see that every couple of years, Jason Light is taking a couple of guys at the cornerback position or at the safety position in round 2 or in round 3 or in round 4, something along those lines. So it is notable to kind of see where Light has invested early round picks before, and it definitely does beg a lot of questions as to whether or not those trends will continue. Kind of look at the success of those players in the past as well. I will certainly say, just taking a look at the list here, Jason Light, I think, is great at drafting cornerbacks in rounds 2 and 3. He's great at drafting safeties in rounds 2 to 4. Also, by the way, for kickers and punters, Roberto Aguayo, second round pick, Matt Gay, round 5 pick, Jake Camarda, round 4 pick. I don't think that is going to play a very big hand here in this upcoming draft. But Jason Light has also not invested a lot at defensive tackle or nose tackle. He has a pretty mixed bag of investment for defensive end or edge guys, but it's always been a round 2, round 1, earlier round picks as well, much like cornerback and at safety, to mixed success. Interior offensive line has also been a little bit of mixed success, but whenever he is drafting in the early rounds at interior O-line, like an Ali Marpet, like an Alex Kappa, like a Robert Hainsey, maybe like a Luke Gedeke, you see some success there. Offensive tackle, very similar thing. If Jason Light is drafting a offensive tackle that the team expects to start, they typically end up being, at the very worst, a above average, serviceable starting tackle in the case of Donovan Smith, and one of the best tackles in the league in the case of Tristan Wirfs. Not a lot of investment in tight ends, a mixed bag of investments in wide receivers to really, mixed results. I think that you can say that really the 2 only successful picks out of 10 at the wide receiver position that Jason Light has ever had have been Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Don't get me wrong, that's 2 incredible hits, but Jason Light really does like swinging the bat in terms of taking wide receivers. I think that trend will certainly continue in this upcoming draft. Running backs, Jason Light likes to take running backs in round 2 to 3 with varying levels of success. And then at quarterback there, that's not much to gain. You took Winston in round 1. He was going to be your guy. You took Trask in round 2. He was going to sit behind Tom Brady. So it is interesting to take a look at all of this. I think that generally Jason Light has done a really good job of drafting early at multiple positions in drafts before, and he's found some gems here or there in the middle to late rounds in some position groups as well. So we'll have to wait and see. Let me know if there's any trends that you guys noticed with this Jason Light draft history down in the comments section below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Again, subscribe if you're new and hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos. And as always, folks, I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.